So I am from Rock Island, Illinois, and small town in the Midwest. There are 5 siblings in my family, so mom, dad, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, younger brother and sister, older brother and sister. I grew up Catholic, attending Catholic school from K-5 through high school. Predominantly a white environment, a white school. There may have been 1 or 2 African-American students, per class, I guess I would say. And I come from an entrepreneurial family, so my mom and dad both actually ran their own businesses. My dad owned a freight transportation company, and my mom owned an industrial supply company, amongst other things. That was kind of later in life, but she worked with the city. She actually worked with model cities, helping develop, building out, kind of the structure of the Quad Cities and Rock Island, and then later helped my dad with his business, and then started her own business. All of my siblings and myself, we all attended different universities, colleges. We're all college educated. My mom and dad, both college educated. My mom has 2 masters. She went on to do social work, counseling. That was her 3rd career in the school system, basically doing family counseling. And I attended Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois, and I got my undergrad in fashion merchandising. I went back home to work with my mom in her business for 4 years, moved up to Chicago, tried to do the whole fashion thing in Chicago. I was like, okay, there's not much fashion in Chicago. So then I moved to New York, and I was in New York for 2 years or so, and then met my then husband, moved to San Antonio, and that's how I got here.
That's how you got here?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting trip.
Very, very interesting. There's more, but that's the gist of it.
So when were you born?
I was born in 1970, and I was born in Rock Island, Illinois.
Okay. So you said that your parents were entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So did that spark anything in you to
Definitely.
be an entrepreneur?
Definitely entrepreneurial minded. When I moved here to San Antonio, I worked a little while for Saks Fifth Avenue, and then my husband and I started our own business. So we started an advertising agency called the Mighty Group, and I basically did that for 15 years. So we ran a marketing PR firm for 15 years. And now I have kind of branched off, and I'm trying to get into higher education. I got my master's in communications in 2016, and I'm kind of trying to find a new route, I guess, in life. So definitely, and I'm constantly still working on little side entrepreneurial gigs, and I'm an entrepreneur at heart.
So with that being said, the entrepreneurship, but you also said your parents were both college educated.
Yes.
Did that play a role in you going to college?
Definitely.
And your sisters and stuff going to college?
Definitely. It was just expected that we would go to college. I mean, it wasn't even a question. There was never oh, I'm not going to go to, that was a given that we would go on and go to college.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you think was your biggest influence growing up, role models?
Right. My mom definitely, I would say, was my number one influence as far as work ethic and just really teaching us the ropes. She was very straightforward, kind of no nonsense, but had a great sense of humor. So she was always able to roll humor into our life lessons.
Right.
And that has really kind of carried me through my own experiences, it's like you can always find something to laugh about. You have to.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, like when you say to keep from crying, you know, laugh to keep from crying. In some instances, it's like, okay, we got to laugh about this. Otherwise, it's like, this is too depressing. This is like crazy. You know, is this really our lives, you know? But it's, you know, you can always find humor as a coping mechanism to brush it off and just keep going. So she taught me that, and that has really carried me through any difficult situation, really. Also, we grew up Catholic, but she actually grew up in the Baptist church. And so when we would go home to visit my grandmother, which she lived in Milwaukee, we would get a little taste of that, and you know, okay, so this is a lot different than Catholic, but
Yeah.
I did get to experience that growing up. But they had a very strong faith, my mom's family, and they lived their faith. So she wasn't all preachy, but she, through her acts and through her kindness and through, you know, she constantly was reaching out and helping people in the community. She was the type, if she saw someone getting their things set out on the side of the road, she would go and say, let me go rent a U-Haul. Where are you trying to take this? Where do you need to, let me put you up for the night. Let me do, you know, and she would just do these acts of kindness with so many that people will come up to me and say, your mom helped me when I was down. Your mom helped me.
Right.
She was constantly, she's like a community activist almost in that regard. So I really learned how to be a decent human being by watching my mom and her actions. The other influence would be my grandmother, my mom's mom, and she was just like, from an era of just like style, grace, polished, you know, we basically learned etiquette through my grandmother, lovingly though. She never chastised us, but she would say, okay, baby, this is how you put your napkin down. This is how you hold the fork. This is how I mean, she groomed us. We didn't know we were, you know, being groomed, but
Yeah.
everything that she taught me, I mean, I can go anywhere with the lessons that, you know, she taught us, just how to behave, how to keep your knees together, how to, you know, and she was like style and grace, like personified. So I actually went into fashion because of her. And because of the love that, you know, because she was actually one of the first AfricanAmerican buyers in the Milwaukee area.
Wow.
And that was unheard of. But
Yeah.
she was in retail, but she had such style and such an eye for selecting. She basically was a buyer for handbags, hosiery, and shoes for a company named Browers Shoe Company. And she worked there for 30 years. And she would go to market in New York, and she would pick out, you know, the different lines and that sort of thing. So very, very, very fashion forward. And so that influenced me a great deal. And I still hear her saying, kick that toe out. Don't walk pigeon-toed when you have your dress on. Don't, you know, she doesn't mind. Go play, go have fun. But when you're dressed up, carry yourself a certain way, you know, that sort of thing. So she taught me a lot just about moving in the world and being a young lady, basically. So I would say that those two were instrumental in the person that I am today, my mom and my grandmother.
Okay, your mom and your grandmother.
Yeah.
You talked about being in school and being in a predominantly white school where
Yes.
there were not that many blacks.
Yes.
Did that affect your education or how you saw yourself?
Yeah, it definitely did. The funny thing about being in an environment where you're like one of the very few black people, basically, but all you can see around you is white people. You know, I tell people that in my home environment, you know, everything was black. When we go to Milwaukee, black, everyone around me. So I had no issues with my identity, my own identity. I knew I was black. I was happy to be black. I was never like, oh, I wish this or I wish that. But to be surrounded by people that you can't see yourself, And so, you know, I remember one time when I was maybe in about 4th or 5th grade, and we had taken a bathroom break, and everyone else had kind of cleared out of the bathroom. And I came out to like wash my hands, and I looked up in the mirror, and I caught my own reflection, and I kind of went, because like, it's like you forget that you're black. And when I say black, not how you feel on the inside, but my own reflection was like, oh my gosh, I'm like the only black person here. You feel like, because you can only see white, you feel like you're white. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it was the weirdest sensation. And it wasn't a traumatic thing, but it was kind of like, whoa, this is weird.
Do you remember like what age? What, elementary?
I was in like 4th grade.
4th grade?
Yeah, I was in
so
about.
that realization that you were the only kind of set in. And
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Lonely. And in really in living that duality. So at home, it's a different reality. And then at school, you have to, you know, play the, okay, well, what did you guys have for dinner? I can't say I had greens, cornbread, you know, neck bones. They don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm saying, oh, I had Kraft macaroni and cheese like you did. I didn't have that, but I had to. I didn't have the energy really to try to explain my own culture to everyone, a room full of 25 people. Mm-hmm. So I would go along with whatever they were talking about. I would never chime in and go, well, that's not what I do, or that's not what, I would just go along with it. And there were times that, you know, people would say, what's that? What are you eating? Or why do you do your hair like that? Or, you know, the questions that you get when you're the only one, basically. And I wasn't interested in trying to educate people.
Yeah. Well, in 4th grade, being in 4th grade,
yeah,
having that pressure, did you feel the pressure of like, I just don't want to deal with it? Or was it more of a pressure like, I need to stay in my lane so they don't ask me as many questions about my feeling was almost like, if you don't know, I'm not here to educate you about that. I actually had almost a little attitude about it. I felt like I didn't want to be the ambassador, right, even at that young age, because I had a little slight attitude. I'm much better now. But I was like, you know, I was feisty. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was feisty. And I would just be like, you know, more or less none of your business. Right. You know, if I was close to the person, and it was genuine. Was there somebody?
Oh, I had very, very close friends that were like family to me. And if it was more natural, if it was like, oh, how do you do your hair? Or how do you know, and they were genuinely interested, as opposed to it being some sort of oddity, like what, why, you know, I didn't answer those questions. Right. It was like, that's strange, just like you're strange. Let me eat my food, leave me alone. You know what I mean? I just didn't have time for that at all. So it was interesting. But I had very, very close white friends, Hispanic. I'm very, very close. And then I would take the time and I would ask them, how do you do this? Or what do you guys do for that? Or, you know, I had friends that were Irish. I had friends that, you know, different cultures that we exchanged our, you know, cultural backgrounds and shared that. But if I knew it wasn't genuine or coming from a genuine place, I didn't bother to try to share my own story, basically, because it would turn into like a mockery.
Right. And
I would be fighting someone. I didn't want that. I really didn't. I didn't want to draw too much attention. That was the other thing. I'm like, I'm not trying to bring any additional attention to myself. I'm already like standing out here. So it's like, just move it along, you know, type of feeling. So, yeah.
So what's important to you? What gets you going?
I have 2 children. So I have a daughter that's 16. I have a son that's 13. And so my experience is, I want to make sure that they have kind of a better understanding of maneuvering, because even though, you know, my mom and they all, it's not that they sheltered us, but they kind of didn't really prepare us, I don't think, like, but it's hard. It's hard to prepare because then you're kind of like putting a roadblock in front of someone. So it's like a very thin line. But one thing that I did, like with my daughter, because of my own experience, we're here in San Antonio. So again, the percentage of African Americans is very low here. It's like 7%. And but I purposefully put her in a daycare. Actually, it was a Carmelite daycare. It's a wonderful daycare, and it's run by Carmelite nuns. But the children are predominantly African American, and so I put her there so that she could look around and see herself, and understand that there are other kids just like you. You're all bright, smart, intelligent, beautiful. You're not alone. Like you're not some oddity. Like, oh, you're special. No, you're not special. There are other kids just like you. And so I wanted to make sure that like her foundation was strong so that when she did go into the environment where she would be like the only person, she had like a really strong understanding of there are other people like me. I'm not alone, basically.
Yeah.
So I made sure of that. With my son, that's a whole nother thing, being a black male. So that's like a kind of scary topic. I mean, I talk with him. Sometimes my daughter will come and go, geez, Mom, you're getting a little heavy in here. I'm like, no, this is like, I got to tell him, you know, like, for example, I had told him if you're ever, and again, he's only 13, but he's starting to hang out with his friends. And I've told him that if you're ever in a situation like at someone's house where you feel things are starting to go left, and it's, you know, especially if there are girls involved, and it's like, oh yeah, take a picture, do this, you know, do not. I said, you know, please, you know, you can't be involved in anything like that. But he's so like kind-hearted. He would be trying to help or trying to, he's very like morally sound, tender-hearted. He's just like, you know, he's just a young boy now, but he's gonna be a big guy, basically. He's gonna be tall. And so I was telling him, you have to remove yourself from that situation. Whatever's happening, at the point that you realize this has gone awry, things are going downhill fast, I said, you need to walk out of that home and just walk down the street and call me. Remove yourself. I said, because whatever happens there, you're gonna be the one that takes the fall for it. I don't care who else is in that room. If it's you and whoever else, whatever black kid is there, that's the one that's gonna be going to prison. The rest of those boys are gonna go off to school. They're still gonna go on with, you know, they're gonna get off, you're gonna go through the court system. You're gonna be going to prison, they're gonna be going to school, regardless of what has actually taken place in that home. So I told them, you have to be able to be aware when things are not going right and to remove yourself. I want people to look around and go, where did he go? I'm like, get out of there, because you're gonna take the fall for it. Every time you will. You'll be trying to explain, no, I was trying to help. It doesn't matter. You can't help at that point. You need to get out. Like, get out of the car. If someone gets into the car and says, hey, I have this on me, or I have that, you need to get out of the car. They can go on and do whatever they're gonna do because they're gonna get a slap on the wrist. You're gonna be in prison. It's just that simple. So I'm trying to get that in his head, like the rules don't apply to you, especially when it comes to the law. You're not gonna, your life's gonna go a whole different direction than someone else that might get caught with something that's not African American. They're not gonna get prosecuted the same way that you will get prosecuted, basically.
Right. Is it hard to have that conversation, those type of conversations with your son?
No, it's not, because it's like life or death. I have to have those conversations with him, because to be shy about it or go, well, it might not, and it might. The alternative of not having it is like too serious. So it's scary though, because they know who they are as people, and they're good people, you know, they're good people. So they don't believe it. They're like, Mom, that's not gonna happen. It's like,
It happens to better people than you. It happens. So the hard part is like, will he be able to distinguish or understand that just by his own presence, just by being a black male, can be a casualty a lot easier than someone else. Can he understand that about himself? And that's a hard pill to swallow, because he doesn't feel inside, he's like, I'm a good person.
Right.
You know, so that convincing someone that even though you're a good person, something could go terribly wrong. It's like, and especially being a teenager, it's like, oh, nothing could happen to me.
Invincible, right?
Yeah, I'm invincible. And it's like, you're really not. You're actually in danger. You know, so it's tough. So
why do you want to tell your story? What's the motive behind telling your story?
I'm actually just interested in the history, African-American history, that's been hidden or kind of squelched for so long. And I think that the only way that our stories are going to get out is by these types of projects where one by one people tell their stories. And I think that our stories, you know, across the United States, they're not unique. We just haven't collectively told our stories and documented our stories and written down our stories. And so I just think it's important to, one by one, begin to tell our stories and to tell our family stories. And I mean, just like, there's such a rich history that hasn't been shared, really. I'm also on a board of an organization called SACAM. And so we're here in San Antonio. San Antonio, it's very long. San Antonio African-American Archive and Museum, basically. So we are doing this sort of collecting oral histories, doing history harvests, and trying to tell the stories of African-Americans here in San Antonio. And so we're doing similar harvesting of information and connecting the dots between different families, back to different industries, and we've like discovered cemeteries, African-American cemeteries that have been overgrown and that sort of thing. So we're clearing those and just reclaiming African-American history here in San Antonio. So that's something that I'm passionate about, and I'm actively trying to be a part of these type of, you know, initiatives, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So
tell me about your experience with racism.
I have many. I mean,
Stands out?
but the one in particular. I mean, when I say I have many, it's like, you know, the daily slights that you deal with. So I was trying to think, you know, do I have one major one? But it's like, you know, just the daily slights.
So let's talk about that.
But I'm gonna go ahead and tell the main story.
Okay.
So when I was in college, again, I went to Northern Illinois University. I had a professor, I believe it was like a history class, and it was a white female, and basically she was lecturing one day, and I can't even remember really what the topic was, but she was lecturing, and it was a historical lecture, and within the story that she was telling, and again, Northern's predominantly white university. At that time, there were probably 40,000 students, between 40 to 60,000, I don't know the exact number, but a lot of students, and roughly 3,000 African-American students. So it was a huge lecture hall. I was probably one of the only African-Americans in the class. And in her story, she said something about, I don't know if it was about slavery or what, but she said something about taking black children and removing them. And she said, yeah, you know, but who wants to see a squishy black baby anyway? Who's, you know, she was just like, ugh. And everyone in the class was like stared at me like, what? The whole class looked at me, and I was just like, did this lady just say this? She was kind of like, I mean, who cares though about a black squishy baby? I mean, they're just so ew.
Wow.
And I was too young to react. I should have stood up flipping desks in there, but I was in such shock. I was kind of like, wait, what? Wait. What did she just say? So not only was she saying it doesn't matter what happened, that, you know, African-American children were being split from their families and that sort of thing, but she was actually disgusted, like squishy black babies, ew. And I was like, wow, that's how you feel? And not only that's how you feel, but you're saying this to this entire class? Even if you feel that way, you shouldn't be lecturing. That should not be a part of your lecture. And it wasn't. It was just like how she felt. It just like came out. You know what I mean? And everyone was like, oh, like turning red. Like everyone in my vicinity was just like slinking down in their chairs. Like, what am I, you know, what's she gonna do? Like me, what am I gonna do? But I was just like, whoa, I was in shock, and there was nothing I could do. And and to this day, it's like, you know, of course, my grown self now, it's like, I could have done this. I should have done this. I should have stood up and said, excuse me, what did you just say? You know, can you say that again? You know, something. So like to this day, it's like, you know, it keeps replaying in my head, like, what could I have said? What could I have done? Should I have gone to the administration? It was so blatantly wrong. But I was like, I felt powerless. I was like, what can I do? And in that moment, it was just like so dehumanizing, because I was thinking, lady, that little squishy black baby, that's me.
Yeah.
I was a little squishy black baby.
Yeah.
So you're saying ew about me. I'm sitting right here. You know I'm sitting right here, right? So it was that type of feeling, you know. Yeah. And I mean, I would say that was one of like the most blatant, you know, type racism, you know, situations that I've ever been in, where I felt powerless and like I didn't know how to combat it or what to do to try to remedy or make it better, basically.
So about how old were you then?
19.
19?
Mm-hmm. It was about 19.
Like in the 1990s, somewhere like that?
Yeah, it would have been like
Maybe the
89. It would have been like 89 or 90.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 89 or 90.
So afterwards, like after leaving the class,
Right.
you know, how did your classmates respond to you, or how did you, you know?
It was the response only happened in that moment.
In that
It was like
moment.
as soon as that left her lips, everyone knew that something else should happen after that. It was like this pause. But then it's like I didn't do anything. It was kind of like it was on me now to say something, do something, you know. And she just continued on with her lecture. I feel like she kind of realized, like, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But she just continued on with her lecture. So no one afterwards, I do think actually a couple of students were like, I can't believe she said that. You know, but I didn't really know anyone in that class. Again, it's like a big class.
Mm-hmm.
I was just in the class, you know what I mean? It's not like I had buddies in that class or anything.
Right. So did you stay in the class, and how did the class end for you? Like,
Yeah, I stayed in the class. I mean, I showed up the next class, and my regret is that I didn't go and talk with her and even just say, hey, I don't appreciate that comment that you made. But for me, I just wasn't able to stand up to authority at that, you know, juncture in my life. Basically, I was just too young. Also, again, I feel, you know, I was conditioned. I had been in that type of environment my entire life,
of
So
being
you
in.
had heard things like that before?
No.
Or not, no? Never?
No, not like that. No, and yeah, never actually. Not from a teacher. I had felt slights from teachers where I could tell that okay, they favor this student or that student, and I'm not really on their radar type of But never had anyone said anything like that. Like to kind of single me out is how I felt. It was like, wow, this lady is just like really brazen here. But what I'm saying is I didn't really have a voice to speak up because I had grown up in an environment of being the only black person in a sea of white students. I didn't really have a voice. I'm just like there in their world. Do you know what I mean? But if I'd had, like, for example, let's say there was more diversity in the class, even if there was 3 or 4 black people in that class at that time, we would have gone, what did this lady just say? It would have given a little more strength to be able to like stand up and go, yeah, you can't say that. You just can't. That's not something you can say. So even if you feel that, you can't say it, But I was just like, I'm like powerless. I'm there by myself. It's like, I'm just a visitor here in your class. So you basically can say whatever you want to say.
Right.
There's no space for me here. That's how it felt.
Do you think that event impacted the rest of your life or the rest of your
No.
with school or anything?
No. It was very It was very hurtful. But it was still being like dropped in that environment. I'm accustomed to being in that type of environment, but the fact that she verbalized it is what made it like shocking for me.
Did it drive you to continue to do other things and to do better? Or, I mean, not that you did anything wrong, but to show her like, no.
No, I would say that it, if anything, it drove me to, I guess, embrace my own culture more, and to try to work to find my voice, and to be able to stand up and go, hey, no, that's not true what you're saying. You might believe that, but that's not a truth, basically. So rather than feeling like, oh, I'm just a visitor here, it's like, no, I deserve to be here. And you can't say those things when, I mean, maybe you want to say that at your dinner table at home with your family, but you can't say that in a public space with students that are paying thousands of dollars to be here. I deserve to be here, and I don't deserve to be disrespected because I'm here, basically. So it helped me to realize, wow, I mean, I have to like flex myself a little more. I can't be like, I'm just here because, it's your world, but I'm just here. So, but that's how I had felt my whole life.
Right. Did you have a conversation about what happened with like your parents or your siblings?
No, but I had a conversation with other AfricanAmerican students.
Okay.
And not to the point where we were like, hey, we got to go do something about this. But no, everyone was like, no, that didn't happen. I'm like, it did. It really happened. It was almost like I was even like, did it happen? You know what I mean? It was like kind of disbelief. But I did, let's say that evening at dinner, like in the lunchroom, I'm sure that's where we were like going back and forth. I'm like, you guys are not going to believe what happened today in this class. So I was able to like talk it through, get it off my chest. Again, we probably laughed about it. Like, is this lady crazy? Do we need to go wait for her tomorrow outside of the classroom? We probably just like laughed it off.
Right.
But but being in that moment, that wasn't funny at all.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think that again, it probably made me realize I have to be able to stand up and defend if need be, myself, my race, my culture.
Right. With that being said, that happened to you, so like late 80s, early 90s. There's been reports about, things being said in the classroom to students here recently.
Yes.
With, you know, young black boys or young black girls, what do you think we could do to prepare our kids to stand up and no, that's not right, or be able to come home and tell parents and say, hey, this is what happened to me in the classroom? Because even though there are some kids that come home and tell, there's a whole group of classroom that don't say anything, and they just like, okay, I've heard this before, so I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
So how do we prepare our kids, and what do we do to push the narrative that this is not how this is supposed to go?
Yeah. Part of it, again, is just what I'm trying to do with my kids is just for them to be sound in who they are, not just sound in who they are in our home. And I feel like that's when I grew up, it was like that. Like, I knew I was safe. I knew I was good. I knew I was, a great person based on being in my home and the people around me that were loving and caring. But they have to know that they're just as great when they're lined up outside with other people, and that they matter and that they deserve to be there, and that if someone pushes that and says, you're not supposed to be here, they have to be able to go, oh yeah, I am supposed to be here. So they have to be sound enough in their own identity to know when someone is slighting them. And a lot of times people go, oh, you're overreacting. No, you're not overreacting, because if you feel that you're being, well, you just stand over here, or you don't sit on the carpet. I had an instance with my daughter with a teacher that all the kids were sitting on the, this was like in kindergarten or first grade, sitting on the carpet, but she made my daughter sit like on the tile. And so that sort of thing, my former self, I would have been like, well, maybe. But again, going back to the situation when I was in college and I didn't speak up, now I speak up. You can call me crazy. I don't really care. Don't make my daughter sit on the tile floor when everyone else is sitting on the little carpet. Don't do that. So you might not think that's a slight, but out of all the children in the classroom, why is my daughter not sitting on the carpet? Because a lot of times the bias is so ingrained, they don't know they're doing it. They don't know. They're not trying to be malicious, but if you stand my daughter here and then you put little Amy next to her, guess what? Little Amy's gonna get the carpet. But the girl that doesn't look like me, because I have an internal bias, you can just sit on the tile, you'll be okay. You can't help it. That's just like human nature. You're gonna show favor to the person that looks more like you. That's just a natural tendency. But the teacher has to be able to overcome that, overcompensate that natural tendency to do more for a person that looks like them, and to be encompassing and be favorable to all of the children, like in the class. Another example, and again, this is me now as an adult, I speak up on anything that I feel like seems like that's not right. I'll go and say, hey, I don't appreciate this, and then we'll talk it through very calmly. I'll be heated, like at home, like what? They said what? They did what? Okay, I gotta go up there tomorrow. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's talk about this. Tell me why this happened. So I try to hold people, I hold them accountable for. And if it's a great explanation, that's fine. But I just want to know, what's going on. I remember we made a family tree for my son. He was like 4. This is like a day school. It's not daycare. It was a day school. So we're paying quite a bit of money for it. And I come to pick him up, and all the other kids' family trees are here, there, everywhere. They were all around the room. I'm like, where's your family tree? I'm looking for it. I'm thinking, she didn't put it up, or what's going on? I find his family tree. It's like down by the garbage can. Like, here's the garbage can. Here's his family tree, like almost hidden by the garbage can. That's not acceptable. Nobody else is in the whole class is down there. I was like, what? So I walked to the teacher and I said, excuse me, why is my son's family tree down here by the trash can? Oh, yeah, well, I didn't have any room. And I said, move it. Get his family tree away from the trash can. Like immediately. Oh, I wasn't trying. I don't care what you were not trying to do. Get it up away from the trash can. Like now. And then she hustled over there. And I said, yeah, Adafe, let's go. Get your stuff and let's go. Because, again, I'm not going to have a long conversation about it. And, it's like you can spend your life wondering, did that lady try to do that? Was she aware when she did that? But guess what? It don't matter. That's how I live now. Whether she was aware, let me put this little black boy's family tree by the garbage can. Or whether she just said, this looks like a good spot. Either way, I ain't having it. You can interpret it. The teacher can interpret it however they want to interpret it. But I'm going to interpret it the way that I'm going to interpret it. And I'm not going to go on about it. I'm not going to say, how dare you? I'm not going to say any of that. But I'm going to say, you're not going to do that. You're just not going to do it. Don't talk, just move it. I don't even want to talk about it. Get it up out of the trash.
And did she find a spot for it?
Hell yeah, she found a spot for it. Quickly.
She found a spot where she couldn't find a spot before.
Exactly. She quickly found a spot for it. Because I was looking like, say something else. Just do it, like now, Another comment that she had made, luckily in that class, there was a balance. So that teacher was a white woman, kind of from a rural area. You could tell she hadn't really been anywhere or been exposed probably to other types of people. But luckily there was a Hispanic woman that was her aide. And she loved my son. She would love on him. And my son's so sweet. It's just ridiculous. And my son was also very quiet. Like he didn't talk much when he was younger. He's still kind of shy. And I remember the white teacher said, "Oh, your son's so quiet. I forget half the time that he's here." And I was just looking at her. I said, is that a compliment? You forget he's here? Okay, but that's her, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's no connection for her to my son. Right. I understand that, but don't mistreat him. Don't forget he's here. And then the total opposite, I'm thinking it's okay, you can forget he's here because Miss such and such has his back and is loving him and kind to him and has to give him a hug before he leaves and gets his blanket for him and covers him up and she's taking care of him. But if she's not there, then what? You're basically neglecting my son in here. You don't even know he's here. And so this is what I mean by like the slights and the bias that people don't know they have. So, we're forced to maneuver through that. But now I say something. If I see something that looks off, I'll say, you know, and when she said that, I said, well, that's not a good thing. I said, you're basically telling me that you don't even know my son's here, so you're basically not working with him. Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you just said. So needless to say, I have found my voice. And I don't want to be battling people all day, every day, and I don't. But if something's off, I'm going to point it out. You can keep doing it, that's fine, but I'm going to point it out. If it's outrageous, then I'm going to go over you and go and talk to administration. I don't know how long you have on this tape, but I have another story about my daughter. I had to go and a teacher my daughter is a very high achiever, always has been. When she started her new high school, you know, people knew her. They knew that she was always doing in the community and doing everything. When she started the new high school, you know, these teachers don't know her from Adam, basically. She had a math teacher that basically, Amaya wanted to do better. So her whole thing is she wants to be 95 and above. She was probably getting about a 90, 92, and she kept going to the teacher and saying, what can I do? What can I do? And the teacher's like, oh, you're fine, it's perfectly fine, you know. And there was an instance where she had accused Amaya of cheating, but she wasn't cheating. There was another instance until finally Amaya had gone to talk with her, and she took her grades to show her, like it was like the midterm grades. And she showed her the grades and said, Miss such and such, I'm really trying to be above, you know, this grade point and this, you know, was going over her grades. And she came home and said that the teacher looked at her grades and said, oh, you're a good student. And I said, okay, now it's time for me to go up to the school. Because prior to that, it's like she's disregarding, and I kept telling my daughter, go back, tell her you know, I wanted her to be able to work through it. But now you're basically telling me that you have a bias because you think that the grade that she's getting is good enough for her. My daughter has a certain goal she's trying to reach, but you're not going to try to help her because you think 90, that's fine for her. What does she want? So that's your limit that you're putting on my daughter. And so I went and I had the principal, the school counselor, the assistant principal, and her, and we went through the whole list of things. And the instance where she had accused her of cheating, she had called both the girls that they're actually they're good friends. She called the other person's mother and said, I had to give such and such a 0 because I think that she and such were cheating. And I said, where was my phone call? How come I didn't get a phone call that this happened with my daughter and she was going to get a 0 for her homework? It was like a homework assignment. Why? Oh, I tried to call you. I said, no, I didn't. Oh, well, maybe the number I had was wrong. You know, she had all these excuses. I'm like, they have my information at the office. But I wasn't given that liberty because guess what? My daughter's grade doesn't mean as much as that other girl's in your mind. So, you know, but I'm here today to tell you, yeah, it does. My daughter has a goal that she's trying to achieve, and I have to come and fight for this because you don't see the value in what she's trying to do. So after that long back and forth, and the whole time she was just like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not, you know, and I said, yeah, and she told me that you said, wow, you're a good student. I said, what, you doubted that she was a good student? No, that's not what, I never said that. Okay, I mean, my daughter's not gonna make that up. She's not going to. So it's that sort of thing. That's like, I constantly am like being an advocate for my kids. And my daughter's to the point now where she's like, Mom, you need to come up to the school because of, I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, I'm busy, I can't, you know, but she literally said to me one time, well, if you're not gonna fight for me, who is? And I said, wow, that's deep.
That's deep. So how did that make you feel for her?
I said, I'll be up there tomorrow. I'll be up there tomorrow. I'll be up there tomorrow. But she knows that I'm there for her like that.
Right.
She knows. She's like, Mom, something's gone awry. You need to get up here. You know what I mean? So I feel that that's showing her that you're worth fighting for. You're valued. And if you're in a situation where you think you're not being valued, then we need to do something about it. And when I was growing up, I had slights, but I probably didn't even come home and share it with my mom. I was just like, oh, well, another day here. This is how it is.
Right.
But I'm trying to teach them, no, it's not another day, and we're gonna get you situated so that you feel comfortable in your environment. If other people think you're not supposed to be there, that's their problem, because you are. You're supposed to be there.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I see you, like you said, you found your voice.
I did.
So was there a point in time where something just clicked, like, I need to speak up, I can't be just not
I think it's just with age.
So you think like things that happen and finally you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Yeah. And I remember when I was younger, my mom was very vocal, and we would be out at the grocery store and she would call people on stuff, and I'd be like, Mom, why are you saying this? Mom, I was so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's calling this lady out. She's like, well, you know I was standing here. Why would you just step in front of me like I'm not even here? You know, those type of, and that, you know, that happens so often. And I was just like, let's not, you know. But now that, you know, I'm older, I'm like, yeah, I know, now I get it. You just get older and you get tired.
Right.
You get tired. It's like, how many times are you going to be disregarded? You really have to either speak up or I don't know. You kind of can lose your mind just keeping all of that in, basically. Mm-hmm. So I get it now. I get every single time my mom said something, I'm like, okay, yeah, now I get it. You're like, oh, we're all grown here, and that's not gonna fly, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
With all of that being said, are you hopeful for the next generation?
Definitely. I'm definitely. Well, I can just see that there's more space for other voices to be heard. It's, you know, with my son's generation, with my daughter, and even just with the way the information is shared now, there's just more room for different kinds of opinions and voices. Whereas before it was like, this is the mainstream, you got to fit into this or be left behind. Now it's like you can be different, you can be unique, you can carve your own niche, you can, you know, have your own platform. It doesn't have to fit this cookie cutter, Brady Bunch type of outlook, where it's like, I'm not like the Brady Bunch, but I gotta act like I'm like the Brady Bunch. That was kind of my indignity that I felt was when I was growing up. It's like, I gotta pretend, I gotta like do this make-believe thing because no one else can really handle what I really am. So now there's more room to actually just be yourself, I think. And people are genuinely interested in other people's stories and cultures, and you can't stop the flow of information because it's really just exposure. And there's more exposure to different cultures and information than like ever before. So for example, just seeing Barack Obama and Michelle in the White House for 8 years, that alone has changed people's perception of what reality is. Even if you're mad about it, even if you're like, oh, that black man's in the White House. Yes, he is. And guess what? Your kids for 8 years saw a black man in the White House. You might not be okay with it, but that's what they saw. That was their leader, the leader that they saw. So that has changed those children that saw that witnessed that, and saw a respectable black man for 8 years running this country. So it's that type of thing. Like, for years, you could hide, oh, this person invented this, or this person, this black person did this great thing, this person, and they've tried to like hide those things and say, no, they're not that great, but with the flow of information, you can't hide it. I mean, you just can't hide it anymore. Yeah. Black people's greatness, you can't hide it. You can keep saying, oh, they're just, all in prison, no, we're not. We're here and we're doing great things. So you got to deal with it. You got to deal with that shift in reality, basically. So to me, it's a beautiful thing that we're really all finding our voices,
Yeah, so do you think that with the way things are happening now, with all the different candidates that have become in senators and different, do you think that's a big part in the change?
Well, that's a big part in people just going, I got to get up and serve because everything's gone awry with this administration. I think that's people just going, I'm qualified to get up and serve my community. That's what I really think that is. Mm-hmm.
As far as the shift, because you said Obama had an impact on what people saw.
Yeah, and what can be reality and what's not reality. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that by seeing him, people of color said, I can do that too. Mm-hmm. There is a space for me in that arena, whereas before there wasn't. So yeah, he cleared a path basically. So yeah, definitely. That's a big part of I think the number of African Americans and Hispanic and that are saying I can step up and I can serve and I can do a great job at it. So yeah, I believe that.
So is there, to wrap it up, mm-hmm. is there anything you would like to say that I didn't ask or that's on your heart to say that we didn't cover?
I guess like for my own story and my family story, I personally, come from a long line of very like successful, high achieving African Americans, and we've been fortunate to be able to document a lot of our history. So that alone has helped me to be, stand strong and be sound in like who I am. I've never at any point said, oh, maybe I'm less than, but I have been in situations where I'm like, wow, this is a lot to try to confront or to, it's like me against 23 people or me against, so it's kind of just, I feel like it's the one-on-one interactions that you have with people. Wherever you can try, I don't have the attitude anymore, like I'm not gonna educate, I'm not gonna, so wherever you can speak out, wherever you can, however you can try to educate people around you, I think it's important to do that. It's hard as a child, you don't even get the dynamic of everything that's going on. But as an adult, I think it's important to speak out and to just tell your own story, really, and to really stand firm in your story, and to be proud of your culture. To be proud of your culture, not think, oh, this is just like a sidebar. It's like, no, this is a part of American culture, and it deserves to be heard. And we are all here together for a reason, so we have to figure out how, to maneuver and work together. So that's kind of like where I am now. I'm hopeful, it's even with, in light of all of that's coming out, like, the hate that seems to be coming out, mm-hmm. I think that it's going to end up in a good place because that has to come out first in order to be able to begin the necessary conversations. There are a lot of conversations that need to be had, and in the end, we all have to look around and go, okay, we all have a seat here, we all have a seat at the table.
Right.
we all need to work together in order to, you know, to actually make this whole American dream a reality. We have to work together. So I'm doing my part. That's what I'm doing. That's what I figure. I'm just doing my part at this point. So, yeah.